But a part of this course was to actually, find a vulnerability. It could be already known, could be whatever it is, right? Find a vulnerability, exploit it on the device of your choosing. And so I wanted to make this a little bit difficult, right? I wanted to make it a little bit challenging. And I wanted to find a vulnerability, with Bluetooth on an iPhone, right? Found the vulnerability, tried to exploit it. I spent 36 hours trying to exploit it, something that was never going to work, because basically Apple did a silent security update literally 2 weeks before I started trying this thing, and it was literally for this Bluetooth exploit. I go and I attempted on Android within, maybe 15, 20 minutes. I have root on the device and I'm able to control everything about the device, right? Like that was a huge difference to me. That was a huge eye-opening, kind of event, right? And maybe, and I'm a terrible hacker. I mean, like, I don't even claim to be a hacker. Like, if anyone were to approach me at like DEF CON or something like that, right? Like, I am not doing capture the flag events or anything like that. Like, I'll go watch, right? But I'm not over here trying to hack stuff. But that experience though, even knowing, having that self-awareness, like, hey, I'm not good at this. This isn't like my forte in security. For it to be that easy with Android, it kind of swayed me more heavily even towards iPhone. And the reason why I went from Android to iPhone, probably 10 years before that, right? What was because of the ease of use, right? I had a very bad experience with Android. I was downloading things from the Google Play Store that had malware on it. It had millions of downloads, right? Like the Facebook app. The Facebook app had millions of downloads or whatever it was when I had an Android. I'm downloading the Facebook app and it has malware in it, right? And this malware is like impacting my device pretty significantly. Like the performance is insanely decreased, everything about it, right? And so with that experience, and I even talked to like Android support at the time and said, how the hell is this happening? Like this has happened 3 times to me. I'm literally going to your own Play Store and downloading it. This is even before me getting into cybersecurity. And they're saying, well, you're downloading it and it has malware in it.
Yeah.
And there's no way to tell. And I'm sitting here like, you're Google, it's your Play Store. You don't have a way of telling if it has malware in it.
So you touched so many interesting points. I try to remember what you were talking about, but let's start with that. So you're talking about maybe 10 years ago, right? So back these days, Apple was very close. You cannot do much on the iPhone as a developer. On the other hand, Google had everything open. I mean, like almost everything. And that not only means from a developer perspective, what you can do on the phone, all the APIs, but also in terms of the Google Play Store. You can upload an application to your store. No one will even verify that. No one will look it on the app. They're not even automatic scanning of the apps. Permission usage was, if you could use it, then you can upload it to the store. Both Google and Apple did some changes. So Apple became a little bit more open. They gave the developers more options on one hand. Google started becoming more secure in their place. Let's talk about Android itself in a second. But today it's harder to upload an application to Google. There is some verification process for you as a developer for your app. They restricted a lot of things that you can do with your applications. Permissions were downgraded. I mean, you cannot do anything that you want to do as you used to be. And the whole operating system is becoming more secure. But again, we'll touch about it later. So things are changing all the time. And in the case of Google, they also have the problem of the large device variety. So you have so many devices out there, so many versions of the operating system. And they had to do some work in order to make sure that those that, out there can maintain the security updates. And they did some good job there to be better and give the manufacturers better support in upgrading the operating system, making the upgrade easier for them. We see it now by ourselves, so we launched our operating system based on Android 13. We are updating to Android 14 this year. The process is not very hard for us, even though we had a very big, we did many changes in the operating system based Android system for more security and for our needs. And it looks much better. Now, if we're talking about the Android operating system, Android used to be very light back these days. We are device manufacturers, so we are in charge of the operating system. I see the Android source. Actually, anyone can see the AOSP tree. We see the whole BSP tree, including the drivers and everything. And that is becoming a huge piece of code. And most of the changes are related to security. And more layers are added to make the operating system more secure. What is exposed to other apps? For example, something that used to be very open, even a few years ago, now much more closed. Stuff like that permission mechanism was evolved. What permission given to built-in applications on the phone. So Android became like a huge monster, and many code changes are made in the Android operating system to support this agenda. Having said that, the more code you add, the more vulnerabilities that you can potentially add to the operating system. That actually brings, a different topic because, we discussed about iOS versus Android. So iOS is closed source and Android is not. And many vulnerabilities are discovered because it's an open source on one hand. On the other hand, Apple closed source policy prevents someone from, take a look in the source code and find vulnerabilities. So I assume that potentially more vulnerabilities exist on Apple, even though probably they are much harder to be found.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is fascinating. The last time I looked at like the device architecture of iPhone versus Android, right? Just kind of a overarching architecture. It seemed like the iPhone kind of protects the user from the user, right? Like they have sandboxes for their apps, they have sandbox for their user space, they have it's separated from the operating system even, right? And there's very specific like keys that you have to use to unlock each of those components and whatnot. And, even like if you were going to, take your iPhone, right, to an Apple dev and say, open a terminal and troubleshoot this thing, like they would have to have a very specific key with a very specific, cable that's plugged into it, probably within the geofence of, Apple campus and whatnot, right? All of those things have to line up for them to be able to do that, which, I mean, at least from my opinion, right? Like I haven't seen it from your side where potentially you're actually actively thinking of new ways to exploit devices, right? Because, I mean, that's probably how you built Unplugged to some extent, right? Like it's like, well, what's available right now to exploit devices, and then what's coming in the future to exploit devices. I don't know it from that angle, but at least from my angle, it seems like, okay, iPhone gets me, 85, 90% of the way there in terms of security. So I'm going to go with that, right? And then I heard about the Unplugged device, which was very tempting to me, right? Because I don't know if you've listened to the podcast very much, but right before Russia invaded Ukraine, right, on the podcast, I was calling out Russia, right, when everyone else was saying, oh, it's a war exercise or whatever it is, it's like, hey, they have tanks on the border for a reason. Like they're not just amassing to amass, and they're not doing this war exercise directly on the border for no reason. I was actively calling them out, and I do the same thing with China and whatnot. And it was interesting. Literally the day that Russia invaded Ukraine, my podcast got blackholed or blacklisted in all of Russia, China, Iran, basically all enemies of America and Israel.